Yeah. All right, then I'd like to welcome our speaker, Phyllis C. from Paso, Robles.
I'm Phyllis Cowman. I'm grateful that I know that I'm an alcoholic. I want to welcome the newcomers who are here tonight. And I want to welcome the visitors from all over. San Diego's kind of an old stomping ground of mine. I have a lot of friends in San Diego. Yeah. I miss seeing Bill and Margaret up here tonight. And for those of you who know me and know my mate, I miss Johnny being here tonight. But we'll try to be grateful for what we do have. It's kind of difficult for me to come down here. There's so many people in this room that are so very, very important to me. And there's a lot of love in this room that's helped to carry me through some of the things that I've been going through of late. And I'm just a sentimental old lady. I've been a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. I've been clean and sober for 28 years and 3 months. And when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, I wasn't this old, but I didn't look this good. I was 35 years old, and I thought my life was over with. And I didn't think that I was an alcoholic like you. You see, I'd heard about Alcoholics Anonymous 7 years before I came here. And I was a swinger, a jet setter with money, property, and prestige. And the people who called on me were old bags like me, and I thought, my God, they should have quit drinking a long time ago. I'm still having a good time. And I made it geographical. I left the United States because I thought I was too much of a swinger for all of you. I'd go someplace to the big city, and I moved to Mexico City. 7 years later, I came to on the floor of a jail in an old dirty house dress and run over go-aheads, no underwear, hair several different colors, and I came to in a straitjacket lying face down in my own vomit. And I believe at that point I had what I at that time termed a spiritual experience. I recognized that I was there because I had put me there. I didn't blame people, places, and things at that moment. Now I called people in Alcoholics Anonymous who came and got me and who babysat around the clock with me for several days until I was physically able to be taken to my first meeting. I'm so very, very grateful for both the program of Alcoholics Anonymous and the members of Al-Anon, because Al-Anon women sat with me and helped take care of my 2 little boys until I could get to that first meeting. And I still did not believe that I was an alcoholic like I thought an alcoholic was. I thought that Alcoholics Anonymous was a place where people came and they didn't drink and they were rehabilitated. They were returned to their natural state. And they were people who didn't do anything or think anything that wasn't appropriate unless they were drinking. And I was a person who, from the very beginning, I said I was ripe to become a physical alcoholic because I had all of the mental and emotional problems that all I had to do was put alcohol in my system to become a full-fledged alcoholic. But I used alcohol to cope with the business of living. Many of the things that I accomplished in my life, I don't believe that I could have done them without the use of alcohol. It gave me courage, it gave me confidence, it quieted the butterflies in my stomach, and it got the moisture off my hands, and I could be whatever the scene called for me to be at the moment. I had my first drink, my first drunk, my first blackout, and my first relationship at 14. And that really is the story of my drinking career. It never really changed. The geographics changed, the people changed, and so forth, but my actions remain pretty much the same. I didn't want to return to anything that I had been, because I knew that what I had been was the reason that it was necessary for me to drink and use. I had a dual problem. I was a person who added drugs to my alcohol very young in life. I came here a Benny baby. I liked speed. I didn't like downers. I didn't need them. I was on Wynette by the time I got here, so I had all the downer I needed. But Benzedrine gave me that time that I needed, that energy that I needed to keep up with the drinking that I needed to do. Everything that I say tonight, or everything that I am tonight that is worthwhile, I have learned since I entered the doors of Alcoholics Anonymous. I was born in the Midwest, and I was raised in the rackets. For those of you who are not familiar with what the rackets are, there might be some younger ones here that don't know that term. It was illegal money, and a lot of it. And I had no respect for law and order. I believe I was raised in the principle of do unto others before they do unto you. And I used people, places, and things to better myself all my life. I didn't know any other way to do it. Now, when I did that, when I used you, I also made myself indispensable to you in order to cover up the feeling of guilt that I had for using you. When I used you to escape, when I ran away from home the first time to get married, used someone to get me away, I became the best house cleaner, the best mother, the best cook, the best this, the best hostess, and all those kind of things, because I felt I owed that to you. So I looked on the outside like I was a pretty good person. Coming into Alcoholics Anonymous, I was relating at dinner tonight. There were a lot of people who didn't think I was going to make it. I was a very, very sick woman. I had a lot of physical damage. I had liver damage and nerve damage, and I used to sit in the meetings and scratch a lot. When you drink as much wine and take as many bennies as I did, you have some nerve damage. And I used to scratch, and some of the nice people would get up and move down a couple of seats because they didn't know what in the name of God I had. I did this for a long time. It was all I could do to go to meetings and just hang on to stay set down that long. I did a lot of crying and a lot of wailing, and boy, my life was pitiful. I came here terrified of financial insecurity, absolutely terrified. I didn't come here because I thought there was anything for me. I came here to get the law off my back, and I thought I was going to lose my two little boys. One was 2 and one was 11. And I loved those children as much as I was capable of loving anyone. And there wasn't really anybody around who wanted them, but they were going to take them away from me if my actions didn't straighten up. I was 3 months behind in my rent. I couldn't pay the utilities, and I was unemployable. And I was absolutely terrified, absolutely terrified. And every time you instructed me in some way or other, I would say, yes, but, yes, but, yes, but. My sponsor, I got a man sponsor because I was terrified of women. Of course I was, because the only women I had ever known were women like me, and they don't make good friends. And so I chose a man sponsor, and I had a marvelous sponsor, but I got his Al-Anon wife with him. And they became my loving parents. And I used to try to scrape them off my arms in order for me to be able to be me. They just seemed to be there all the time, watching, protecting, and loving me. I didn't understand. I'm a hugging person, in case any of you who don't know me. I'm a toucher and a hugger now. Because I was so afraid when you put your hands on me when I came into Alcoholics Anonymous, because I thought, you want something from me and I don't have anything left to give. So I make it a point to do a lot of hugging and a lot of loving of people, especially people who are new in this program, because I think we need to learn that there are no strings attached to that we just love you and want to walk with you and help you to help yourself. I'd like to tell you that I got straightened out real quick. I have not had a drink or a pill, a mind-altering chemical, in 28 years and 3 months, but good God, I've been crazy. The first 5 years of my sobriety sound like a lot of women's drunkalogs. I did not get good. I was a very, very sick person, and I know today that we don't come here to get good. The book tells us that. There's no such thing as good or bad. There are those who know, and there's those who don't know. And today, finally, I think I'm beginning to know. But the first 5 years of my sobriety, I looked for my higher power in a pair of pants. Somebody else is looking. It won't work. But I'll tell you something. I wouldn't deny anybody their experiences in sobriety any more than I would deny them their experiences whilst drinking, because I think it takes what it takes, and I think when we get sick and tired of being sick and tired, we make some changes, and we must not stand in the way of anybody getting sick and tired of being sick and tired. If Johnny were up here talking tonight, my husband, he would tell you that between the two of us we had many, many divorces. And then he would have to tell you that his were while drinking, but mine were while sober. And that's true. I wanted so to be good. I wanted so to make a home for those little boys. I wanted so to be. And I am a person who needs desperately to be needed, and it's always been that way for me. And of course, I've told you how very, very sick I was. And I could walk into rooms like this, and there could be 100 men in the room, and 99 of them would be good, level-headed, good members of Alcoholics Anonymous. But you know who would be attractive to me and who I would be attractive to. Real sick. And that's the way it went for some time. I've been a very active member of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I think that's what saved my ass many, many times, is that I have been involved in the program and the different activities in Alcoholics Anonymous ever since I got here. And activities don't give us much of a spiritual program, but they will keep us busy until we find one. I will be married to my present husband 22 years this coming September. And I had moved from Orange County to Long Beach and was never going to get married again. My oldest boy was gone by then to school, and my youngest that I brought with me to the program, both those little boys, the youngest one was 9 years old, and we moved into Long Beach. And having made the statement that I am never going to get married again and I was going to be a career woman, etc., I met my present husband. He was 3 days out of the penitentiary, and I knew that this was different. And we played house for a year, and then we realized that the principles of the program were not being applied, so we got married. And within 6 months, I was ready to leave him, because it was the same old crap again. But I got an old convict this time who told me that I wasn't going anyplace, that he had learned to do time the hard way, and he was going to do time with me, and I was going to do time with him, and we were going to stay together until we found out how to make this thing work. And it's worked. It's been I have been married to my very best friend these last few years. I owe so much to the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. One of the big problems that I had, we have 12 spiritual principles in this program. There's one in each one of the steps. And those spiritual principles, applied as best we can in our life on a daily basis, change behavior. And that's what's happened to me. The Christians talk about being reborn. I've been reborn in Alcoholics Anonymous. I never knew who I was. There were a lot of times I knew what I was, but I didn't know who I was or where I was going or what my purpose in life was. Today I know what that is. I know, first of all, that I am a unique and special person, that there's not two of us. If there were two of us, one would be unnecessary. And like all of you, I'm special and unique, and I belong to God. And my purpose has been set down for me in black and white in the big book. My purpose is to be of ultimate service to God and my fellow man. And the only way that I can be that is by doing the best I can on a daily basis to practice these spiritual principles. You know, I always loved the quotation in the big book by Herbert Spencer that there is a bar against all information. Oh, God. Isn't that great? I've been through that a dozen times this week. Come on, help me. And there's a bar against all information, and it will keep a man in everlasting ignorance, and that principle is contempt prior to investigation. Contempt is a principle, but the opposite of contempt is a spiritual principle. In the first step, I believe that the principle in the first step is rigorous honesty, admitting to myself that I'm powerless over alcohol and that my life is unmanageable. And you know, that doesn't have a thing to do with drinking. That has to do with now, in the present. It was hard for me to understand that when I came, because I believed that I had managed, as that young girl in that violent family, to get away from there and become somebody. And I went a long way up the ladder to success. I was a wife of a VIP. I dined at the table of 2 presidents. I believed that I managed all that. And then when I came down, sliding down the other side of the ladder, I blamed people, places, and things for that, and bad breaks. Today, I know that my life is unmanageable. It was now, and it was then. And I have to be rigorously honest about my ability to manage. A lot of people come into Alcoholics Anonymous that have good jobs. They have a wife. They have a home. They may be having some marital problems, things like that. But they do not realize that that doesn't mean their life is manageable. And I feel kind of sorry for them, because sometimes they have to go through some real hard times before they can apply these steps in their life. I'd like to talk more about the last couple of years, last 2.5 years of my life. I could go through a drunk-a-log for hours, and you probably all have either been there or known somebody who was or can identify in some way. But it seems to me more important for me, particularly tonight, to talk to you about what's been going on in my personal life and what's been given to me through this program of Alcoholics Anonymous. To begin with, I told you when I first started talking that I have some very, very dear friends in this room. Some of you are very dear friends and don't even know it, because you've given me a tremendous amount of courage these last few years. A couple of years ago, I had cancer surgery. I'm a bag lady, and I went through it very, very well. I felt I was without fear. I felt a great deal of gratitude for being able to come out of it as well as I did. It's not fun having this bag, but the alternative was lousy, so it's not too bad. I'd like to show it to you. It cost about $25,000, but I guess I can't. I'd show you a Gucci bag that I've got all the time, but this one's more valuable. I had a spiritual experience. If you don't know about turning your will and your life over the care of God, just get on that operating table and see what you're going to do, right, Don? There's a spiritual experience that happens during that time. But my husband was so loving, and he was so kind, and there were things that I had to permit him to do for me that I had never permitted another human being. I have a lot of that crappy pride, and things. And he promised me while I was in the hospital that he was going to take me to Hawaii. I got out of the hospital in January, and he was going to take me to Hawaii in November as a treat. And I said, fine. And God, I had so much love and so much support. My hospital room was the wildest place you've ever seen, wasn't it, Barbara? It was crazy. And there was a lot of 12-step work done because of that operation. Amazing how many people who had cancer or had somebody in the family with cancer would come and spend some time with us because they were just amazed what this program had given me to walk through this. And we were all packed and ready to go to Hawaii. And Johnny took sick and went to the hospital, and within a few days we knew he had brain cancer. And he was operated on and went through radiation and so forth, and he ended up brain damaged. And he is at present time in a convalescent hospital in Fresno now. It has been a long year. Now, I got along fine with my physical condition and my emotions and mentally, and I had a tremendous spiritual experience, but something happened to me when this happened to my husband. And I could not accept, I could not surrender to the diagnosis that was given. And I spent some real crazy times on phone calls to Don, wanting, after all, he's a doctor, wanting to tell me something, And I realized something that had happened that I should have known all along in my years of sobriety. It's been very hard for me not to let go and let God in my own life, but to let go and let God in the lives of people that I love. Very difficult. For some reason or other, I have felt a tremendous responsibility, as if any of you who are around me, and I even have to apologize for some of the women that I sponsor tonight, because I'm thinking that God's working through me to them and they're not getting a direct connection, and I'm afraid that this is the thing that I've done with Johnny. I share some of this. Those of you who are new probably wonder why in the world I'm standing up here talking like this, but this is program, and I want you to know the strength of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. Life does not always deal us the cards that we want to have. We had retired. We'd come up here with what was to be our retirement savings, and we've just had a ball since we moved to Paso, Robles. We've gone places. We've just run around like a couple of kids in sobriety, in this marvelous, marvelous way of sobriety that can come about through working this program. And then this devastating thing happens. Two people in the same family in 1 year with cancer is rather unusual, but one who is terminal. They weren't able to get all the cancer, and they did brain damage. And I found myself with tremendous anger, not at God, because I don't think God had anything to do with this, but at our president. I thought, he's getting first-class medical care. How come my husband can't? At the VA hospital, at people, places, and things, because it seemed like every door that I tried to get open was closed. Tonight I stand in front of you, surrendered, Don. I have surrendered. I accept today that my husband is not coming home anymore. I am grateful for so many things, I am grateful that he's not suffering physical pain. I've lost my best friend because he's not the same person that he used to be. And I'm able to go and see him and come home without being completely out of my mind today. And it's only because of the tremendous support that I've had in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. I didn't know that I was going to talk about this tonight. It's just that there's so many people in this room that are so very important to me in my life today. I know that I can't die from my husband. And I know that he doesn't belong to me anymore. That he belongs to God. He never really has ever belonged to me. But I never knew it as much as I know it now. And I have been able to release him now in the care of God, instead of being so terribly, terribly frantic about finding an answer that would make it all right. You know, when I came here to Alcoholics Anonymous, if I had phone calls or a nickel in, there wasn't anybody for me to call, and I was so afraid. I was so afraid with those little boys. Today I have so many phone numbers and so many people. And I told you how afraid I was of financial insecurity. Everything that Johnny and I have worked for over the last few years is gone now. My husband didn't have any insurance. He'd always gone to the VA hospital. And you know, the greatest, I've said it many, many times, but I never really knew it. I don't cry graciously, but they're tears of release, really. Fear of financial insecurity has been been removed completely. I'm not afraid. I'm 63 years old. As I told you, I'm a bag lady. I'm another thing. I'm one of the few people you'll meet in Alcoholics Anonymous that isn't an asshole anymore. But you know, the fact that not to be afraid, at 63, all the cash is gone. I've had the car up for sale. I'm driving a Jaguar, if you can imagine, flat out broke. Better than the one I was flat out broke with when I came here. And I've tried to sell it. I can't move it. I can't afford to let it go for nothing. And I look pretty good, don't I? I look pretty grand, you know, and I had coffee in bed this morning. I have a lot of joy in my life, in midst all of this. Now, I hope, we were talking at dinner tonight, you know, I used to be so dramatic about everything that was happening, and I was that way for attention. I hope that you don't think that I'm doing that. I don't want anybody to feel sorry for me. Thank God for what I have, and be grateful for me that I have this way of life. Where would I be? Where would I be without this way of life? You know, when I was going through radiation, I first met a group of people in that business over there in San Luis where I went to radiology. Lovely people, stricken with cancer in their family. Sweet people that have never done any of the rotten things that I've done. And they were terrified. They had nothing to hold on to. Their families were all torn apart and in a squabble over that disease. You know, cancer affects all the members of the family, too. And I knew then how fortunate I was to be a member of Alcoholics Anonymous and have this program to walk through these things with. And that's the way I feel today. How fortunate I am that I got through these doors, didn't even thinking that I belonged here, that I was different from any of you. Many of the people who have been so close to me through all this and have been such good friends to me are people with far less sobriety than I have. But they're friends and they've been there. I call Lois every morning She's gone through every mood that I have had. I don't have any ego about 28 years and 3 months. Now, there are some things that have been necessary for me to do in order to stay here with any kind of comfort. I'm not a person that believes that you can remain in these rooms year after year after year and just not do anything. It was necessary for me to get into the program of Alcoholics Anonymous immediately. My sponsor told me of 2 things. He said, if you want to get well, you work the steps. You are sick as your secrets. Get them out. And I believe those 2 things are vitally important for me. That's why tonight I'm talking to you about the things that I'm really feeling and that I'm going through. You know, I think joy, I talked about I have joy in my life today. Joy is not anything I can manufacture. Now, I might be able to manufacture a little happiness along the way, but joy is a gift of God, and I have tremendous joy in my life. I'm not a person that believes that you can remain in these rooms year after year after year and just not do anything. It was necessary for me to get into the program of Alcoholics Anonymous immediately. My sponsor told me of 2 things. He said, if you want to get well, you work the steps. You are sick as your secrets. Get them out. And I believe those 2 things are vitally important for me. That's why tonight I'm talking to you about the things that I'm really feeling and that I'm going through. You know, I think joy, I talked about I have joy in my life today. Joy is not anything I can manufacture. Now, I might be able to manufacture a little happiness along the way, but joy is a gift of God, and I have tremendous joy in my life on a daily basis. I've gotten to the point where I've gotten a sense of humor back, which, God, what a gift to get that back. Because I was just crushed at some of the bizarre letters that I get from my husband and some of the strange phone calls. But I have been given, I prayed about it and prayed about it and prayed about it. He hasn't changed, but my attitude about the whole situation has changed. And I'm grateful that he's not suffering and that he's bizarre. It makes it easier for him, I guess, to do some crazy little things. And I'm accepting him as a whole new person. You know, I haven't deserved any of the things that have been given to me since I got sober in Alcoholics Anonymous. And there's been trips, and there's been fun, and there's been loved ones, and I have a young son that has almost 3 years on the program that gave up his place to live in San Diego and moved home when Johnny got so bad, and then we still had him at home. And I have that kind of I have a friendship with that young man. It isn't a mother-son relationship anymore. It's a friendship. It's an equal friendship, and it's been given to me through this program. I'd like to be able to some way thank all of you. You know, this 4th of July celebration and all this stuff that's been going on television, I guess I haven't been much of a patriot, because all I could think of during the whole thing is that if I'm any kind of a citizen today, it's not because of Miss Liberty, it's because of Alcoholics Anonymous. I had a fellow tell me, well, it's the greatest thing that ever happened. I said, you were a shit poor citizen up until you got to Alcoholics Anonymous, you know. That's what's given me my freedom, is the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. I looked for freedom all my life. I was a runner, and I was going to be free or else, and I got involved in all kinds of crazy things, peace marches and all kinds of things. Left the United States, was going to take up citizenship someplace, just goofy thing, wanting to be free. And that's been given to me. You know, Woman's Lib talks about freeing the woman. Alcoholics Anonymous is what frees the woman and frees the man, to give us some freedom of choice. and give us some real simple directions that each and every one of us can follow. I really don't know why I'm rambling on, because I think I feel tonight such a feeling of gratitude that it would be kind of a waste. I've been involved ever since Johnny and I came up. Some of you who know us know that, I've always been involved in institutional work since the first 3 months that I came into this program. I feel more comfortable inside of an institution than I do outside. I always say they're my people, you know. Well, I'm one of them. And Johnny and I have had the marvelous experience of starting 12-step groups in Atascadero State Hospital. And, you know, most of us say, oh, God, aren't you wonderful, and this sort. No, you know, I'm not wonderful. I'm not wonderful. I have been permitted to be involved in some wonderful things. And over the years, it's been going on over 5 years, and over those 5 years, we've seen some absolute miracles that make me more and more in love with the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. I sponsor a girl who is the inside sponsor for Alcoholics Anonymous at the hospital. And I've been very shy out there lately. Breaks my heart to go out there because they always called Johnny and I Mom and Pop and made us mugs and everything, you know. And it just didn't seem right to go out there without him. It just made me feel so hollow. I was into self. Last Wednesday morning, Kathleen called me on the phone and she said, well, you talked them into it, and I got about 17 men that are starting on a new 12-step group today. And I said, God, that's wonderful. She said, are you coming out? And I said, I don't have anything to give, Kathleen. She said, what would you tell me if I came to you and said that? So I got dressed and went out. You know, we sponsors are sponsored by our babies. And I love it. I love it. I love it. And we started in a blank page of the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's going to be a humdinger. And I felt like I was 10 foot tall when I walked out of there because there was so much love. You know, we don't realize sometimes out here how fortunate we are that if we don't like somebody in the meeting, we can get up and go across town. Sometimes I think we all ought to be locked up for a while together with all our mixed personalities and all of our anger and not have any place to go but right where we are with those people that we are. You know, I was talking to Lori from Alaska earlier today, and I said, you know, I was given the privilege when I worked these steps. And I don't have to like everybody in Alcoholics Anonymous, but I better love them to death. Like is kind of a strange thing. I think that we are kindred. Some of us are kindred souls. And we just have an affinity for each other that's God-given. And some of us are different, and we like different people. But that should and I don't think it would ever stop any of us who've been here very long. I've never known anybody since I came to Alcoholics Anonymous that I wished would get drunk, that I wouldn't go and make a 12-step call on if they were in trouble, whether they asked or not. And I think that's the level sometimes that we need to get down to instead of some of the petty issues that go around. You know, what you do or don't do isn't any of my business. How I feel and think about you is my business. You new people will hear a lot about resentments are the number one killer of the alcoholic. I'll tell you, self-pity are resentments in disguise. Sorry to tell you that. My sponsor told me that. I hated him for it. But we do get resentments. We're human beings. We don't harbor resentments too long. They are the number one killer. And they are the thing that separates us from. I could talk about this program for so long. I'm not much of a talker tonight. I usually have so much wisdom. But I'm just so very, very comfortable. I hadn't talked to Don. Well, I talked to him yesterday on the phone, but I don't know how long ago it was I made that frantic phone call to you. And I'll see if I can clean this up a little bit, what he told me. We had an old friend, an old member. She's no longer with us. And Don reminded me of something that she used to say because I was just frantic. And I felt, that Don he'd get some answers for me that none of the rest of you could get. And he said, have you forgotten what she said? And then he told me, let's see if I can say this. He said, screwing, I can say screwing, I won't say the other word. Would you say it out loud? Say it, Don.
Struggling to surrender is like screwing for chastity.
Yes. And I was so torn up when I called him, and it hit me so funny. Laughing is a tremendous thing to change the trend of thought. And I got to thinking about that, and I needed to surrender. I needed to surrender. And I didn't know how at that moment to surrender all these things. So I started doing some of those basic things. I read my book on a daily basis. I pray on a daily basis. But I started contacting on a daily basis. When Johnny left the hospital and was home for a short time, and then I took him to the VA hospital in Long Beach, and he was there for 2 months, and then the psychiatrist took him down to the kitchen, and he prepared an egg, and the psychiatrist said, he is perfectly all right. So he came home, and within 2 weeks he was down, and he was not comatose, but he was total care. And we took him out of the house by ambulance to San Luis, and the doctors there looked at it and said, there's nothing more that can be done. So we put him in a posy, which is like a small straitjacket, and put him in the back of the car, and my son got in the back of the car with him. We took him to the VA hospital in Fresno. And this was after I had talked to Don, and I expected the worst when I got to Fresno, because that's all I've had. That's all I have had is people acting as if I'm crazy. There's nothing the matter with this man, like I'm crazy. And we got him to the VA hospital, and I was ready to do battle. And I have never been treated with such love and such respect. I didn't know how to handle it. I wasn't prepared for it. I just bawled. They kept him. He had to be total care and tied down, and that was very difficult for me to see. And before that time had come along, I am one of the original members of the Palm Springs Roundup, was in the group that started that Roundup, and I had reservations for the Roundup, and I thought, I can't go, and I canceled them, and I can't go, and I canceled. How would it look if I went to the Palm Springs Roundup and my husband is in the condition he's in, The last time I called up to cancel, my friend Gloria said, come. You need to be here. So there wasn't anything I could do at the hospital. So my son and I drove down in the middle of the night, and we got to Palm Springs, and I walked in, and these are people, the majority of them who were involved in the conference are people that I've known since they first came on the program, or have known me since I first came on the program. And I felt apart from, I felt different than, because I'd been Johnny and Phyllis for a long time. It's strange how we can lose our identity in a lot of different ways if we're not careful. And I walked through that first day and that first night, and I still felt different. And I remembered something that My sponsor had told me when I was very young in this program, share where you are right now with a new person, with a new alcoholic. Don't tell them how to work their program, just share where you're at. And I found me the dingiest little girl you've ever seen with moosed hair, all different colors, that was just scared to death. Everybody thought she was mean, but she was scared, and I knew she was scared, and we became buddies down there, and I began to feel a part of. My friends began to see a difference in me. I was taken to the Al-Anon luncheon. I was taken to the banquet. I just had a marvelous time, and I left there late on a Sunday and went directly to Fresno, and the next day they had already placed Johnny in a convalescent hospital. And it wasn't that I shared my trip with him or people, because at that time he really wasn't understanding, but I shared me with him. I felt better. I felt my batteries had been charged. I didn't feel like the martyr that I could have felt like if I'd have stayed at home and not gone because. And that's something very difficult to do in these circumstances, because the normsies out there expect us to put on sackcloth and weep and moan and wail and carry on. And we don't do it that way, those of us who are here. I thank all of you for making a 12-step call on me tonight. I would like to share a little more program with you, but I wanted to share tonight the results of the program. You know, the God that I understood when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, and you asked me to turn my will and my life over to him, was a mean old bastard that sat up there that had taken, written down everything that I had ever done bad, and it started at 4.5, and I was being punished. When my first husband was killed in an airplane accident, I knew that the God I understood had done that because I wasn't the kind of woman that I ought to be. You see, the God that I have today is a loving Father. And he hasn't, I'm not being punished. My husband's not being punished. That's a tremendous, I don't know what that means to you, but that means an awful lot to me. And something else the program's given me. You know, when my husband changed, he changed very fast. And I don't have any regrets of what I didn't say or I didn't do. We didn't play games anymore. We were honest with one another. We had a friendship that surpasses anything I ever believed was possible. And I'm not going to weep because I don't have it anymore, because I'm so grateful to have known that. I belong to a couples retreat. I won't be going this year. But one of the things that I have shared with them is that if there are any hard feelings between any of you who love one another, don't go to sleep on them tonight. You may not have tomorrow. Don't build up a lot of regrets for yourself. Stay free and clear within this 24 hours, because that's all any of us have. Thank you so much for being here.